you and I had the same vantage point of watching this game, and it just felt like out of the get-go, that first period just felt like it was almost too much of a hole for the Canes to dig out of.
Yeah, it's that's kind of the story, Paul, when you look back on the game, that you give up those 2 power play goals in the first period, and the final score is one where you're going to be lamenting as you're the Canes that you lose this game by 1 because it came down to special teams. And it's what Rod Brind'amour said after the game, too. It's the Rangers get those 2 power play goals. The Canes got their cracks on the power play, didn't score, and you skate out of game 1 looking up in the series standings, meaning, well, we got to try to find a way to win game 2. You don't want to come back to Raleigh down 2-0. But I think overall, it wasn't a terrible game. It was just a couple of moments on the penalty kill and, a loose moment to start the game, but the Canes answered right back after Zibanejad opened the scoring less than 3 minutes in. So, it's one of those things where if you can put it in a vacuum, and you can't do it, Paul, you and I know this.
Yeah.
But if you can, if this was a game in December, you're like, well, the Canes, they fight, they stay in it. They didn't just say on to the next one. They actually, in the third period, were way better than the New York Rangers. But that in, $6 now can get you a cup of coffee somewhere. So that's about it.
Yeah, wins or losses, and that's how it rolls out. Canes play-by-play announcer Mike Maniscalco joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. And Mike, that goal by Marty Necas felt like the Canes really had some momentum going, like that ice had tilted. And in the playoffs, we know the ice shrinks a little bit, but it felt like it had opened up for the Carolina Hurricanes at that point. But that 5-on-5 battle still needs to be something that the Canes really need to strive to win even more so, with now just 6 games left to turn this thing around.
Yeah, that's the one thing for me is 5-on-5. It was the first period kind of even, second period, Canes started getting to their game. That, to me, was where if the Canes were going to win it, they were going to get on the board with a second period goal. And they didn't. And you can run down all of the numbers all you want. And I know that they're a volume shooting team. That doesn't necessarily translate to shots on goal. Shots on goal can be a deceptive stat too, Paul. But I didn't think that the Canes were getting the volume of shots that they normally get that get through. The Rangers didn't block a ton of shots. This isn't like how the Islanders blocked 38 shots in the first game or the second game of the series last week, 2 weeks ago against the Canes. So for me, they played a really good road period in the second period. They needed to play better than really good. They needed a great road period. They needed a road period where they scored a goal, took the fans out of it at Madison Square Garden, kind of put a little bit of fear in the Rangers to the third. Now you go into the third and you score that goal early by Marty Necas, and I mean, just an absolutely gorgeous setup by Jordan Martinook, who is, we should start calling him Mr. Second Round for Carolina, because he was unbelievable last year against the Devils, and that's a hell of an assist that he gets to get Carolina within 1. But then it's a loose play, and you let a guy who might be the Hart Trophy winner, the MVP of the league, come screaming down the wing. I know it's a save that Freddie Anderson, or a shot that Freddie Anderson wants back, but it's one you got to get the stop. But you can't let that happen, not in a playoff game, not when you're down a goal, and not when you're on the road. But, there is, and this is going to sound like coach speak, there's a lot of good that Carolina can take out of it, but you can't have that bad that was in that game show itself again in game number 2, or you could be coming back to Raleigh down 0-2.
Canes play-by-play announcer Mike Maniscalco here on the Adam Gold Show. And Mike, we know Seth Jarvis getting that late goal there, his third in as many games. But there's another play I want to turn my attention to. Maybe it's unfair, maybe it's not, but you can walk me back if you want to. Right now, between Toronto and Boston, of which Toronto got ousted last night by the Boston Bruins, there's a lot of talk about Mitch Marner right now, and how he didn't show up in the playoffs, and how he may be on his way out of town, or whatever that happens to may be. I don't want the end of this series, when it leads the Canes' way, or whatever it is, to have Jake Guentzel be part of that similar conversation with Mitch Marner. Call my baby ugly on that one. But I'm looking for him to press a little bit more. Maybe he's just pressing too much, because he's getting opportunities. He's just not cashing in.
I think that's the thing that we're all looking at here. And the funny thing is, people are coming up to me going, "What's wrong with Jake Guentzel? And how come he's not playing at the expectations or at the level that he had at Pittsburgh?" And I take a look now, 1 goal, and it's an empty net goal. I get it, but the Canes have played 5 playoff games or 6 playoff games, and he's got 5 points. Now he was brought here to score goals. He was the reason why the Canes, who don't do rentals usually, when it comes to the trade deadline and adding for the playoffs. The reason why they went after and focused their attention on Jake Guentzel is he scores playoff goals. I don't think that he's in the Mitch Marner category just because of all of the pressure that has been on the Toronto Maple Leafs forever and their little core group of players. And if anybody does anything wrong, and the funny thing is I thought Marner was actually okay in the playoffs for Toronto, but that's for Toronto talk show fodder, not for us here in Raleigh, Paul. But I get where there is the concern because Jake Guentzel was brought here to score goals in the playoffs. And the only goal he has right now is that empty netter. So what can be done? I think it's really simple. And maybe it is pressing. Maybe it is squeezing the stick a little bit more and wanting to be the difference, wanting to be the guy who changes the fortune around. For me, the simple thing is just shoot the puck. If Jake Guentzel goes out of a game with 6 shots on goal, I don't think anybody on the team, I don't think any fan, I don't think any of us who talk about the game is going to be upset with a Jake Guentzel 6-shot on goal performance. So I think it becomes a pretty simple edict. And against a team like the Rangers, I don't think it's ever a bad idea to put the puck on net. And what I mean by that is if you try to make the fancy play against them, they're really well coached. They've got really good players, and they're going to anticipate things. So you've got to be either letter perfect with your passes or just throw it on net. And the Jarvis goal that you referenced, yes, it's an extra attacker for Carolina, but that was caused by putting the puck on net and having a little bit of havoc in front of Igor Shesterkin. And that's one of the things that Jake Guentzel was known for in Pittsburgh, of when he get the puck, he was just going to put it on net. So I think that he knows he's got to do that a little bit better and a little bit more. What's the word that I'm looking for here? I don't want to go too hyperbolic here in game 1 and round 2, but I think he's got to put it with a little bit more tenacity than what he is doing in the offensive zone. He doesn't need to defer to Andrei Svechnikov or Sebastian Aho. He's Jake Guentzel. He can put the puck on net.
Canes play-by-play announcer Mike Maniscalco here on the Adam Gold Show. Mike, last one for you here. I've said this after last night's game that even superheroes need days off, and head coach Rod Brind'amour has leaned on Freddie Anderson. He got them the Series 1 win against the New York Islanders, came back last night against the Rangers. Even superheroes need the night off. Is it time for a goal change, much like we saw? I keep referencing Toronto-Boston. They made a quick goal change early on just to give the Rangers a slightly different look than they've already seen in the playoffs from the Carolina Hurricanes in net.
That, I think, is the number one question that's being asked by the Carolina Hurricanes coaching staff is, do you give Pyotr Kochetkov, who has good numbers against the New York Rangers in his career, he has good numbers at Madison Square Garden. Now, it's not a huge sample size, but he likes to play there, and he likes to play against Igor Shesterkin. Do you give him that? The funny thing is, Paul, the text that I got had nothing to do with Frederik Andersen playing too many games, although that's part of it. But it was the layoff too much for the Carolina Hurricanes between Game 5 of the Islanders and Game 1 of the Rangers series. So he had time off. It's not like the Canes went right from a Game 7 to Game 1. But this is an interesting question, and I think that if you leave it up to Frederik Andersen, he's going to want game number 2. He's going to want to go and play and show that the last game, and he wasn't great against the Islanders, even though he was the winner in the closeout game in Game 5. And again, that Game 1 against the Rangers, I can't fault him on the power play goals. I mean, those are just great plays by New York. And then the other one is the Zibanejad goal that kicked it off is, again, it's a mistake where the Canes miss coverage and you let one of the best players in the league alone out in front of your netminder, and that becomes a 50-50 play. But the thing for me is, if you're the Hurricanes, if you think Freddie is the guy that is going to be the goalie who wins you the cup, I think you have to give him game number 2. This is me talking. I think you have to give him game number 2, and then you can go from there. If you don't get the result you want at Madison Square Garden tomorrow night, then you can say, all right, let's give him the look of Pyotr Kochetkov, and we can go from there. Or you can go into that game with I always hate saying giving a goalie a short leash. I hate that, Paul. Because I think that you've got to, if you're giving the goalie the start, you're telling him it's his game to go out there and lose, but you're giving him the opportunity, go win it. Never say go out there and lose it. Because if a goalie knows that, you hear, oh, he's on a short leash. If he gives up a goal in the first whatever, you might say, well, then just play the other guy if you're going to put the starter on the short leash. So I wouldn't I would never question anything that the Canes have done with the goaltending ranks, especially the last half of the year. So I'm going to give you a bit of a cop-out answer. If they want to go with Pyotr Kochetkov in game number 2, if they feel that that's the right decision, with what you're saying, give Freddie a chance to watch a game and mentally reset while the puck is in action, that's fine. It worked in the regular season. But if they also want to go, all right, Freddie, this is your crease. Show us why we're going to give it to you. And he turns in a sparkling performance, which he's fully capable of doing. It can work that way for the Canes. Because you're still going to have that question mark, though, Paul. If you play him in game 2 and he wins, people are going to be going, well, he hasn't played this many games in a row since. And we all understand that. But I think that he's at least earned the opportunity. If he feels good and he wants to paint on Tuesday night, then you should give it to him.
Something to be said about having a New York bagel, Mike.
Oh, my God. There's not. Look, no offense to any of the bagels anywhere. And I have consumed bagels all across this great continent of ours, Paul, as you can tell. But there is nothing better than a New York bagel.
Well, a New York bagel on the scoreboard would be just as nice. Mike, we'll catch you on the call tomorrow night.
You got it, Paul. Thanks.
All right.